Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You know what? Listen, Simba, if you're listening to this, you might want to go ahead and skip ahead about 2 minutes. I don't think you want to hear the next part. As a matter of fact, to one of my favorite Ikhwan in, well, I'm not sure if you're in Detroit, South Carolina, or Atlanta right now, but you probably don't want to hear this either, now that I think about it. Boat Ladola, I know you don't. So, in the early to mid 90s, I moved to Atlanta to go to college, as y'all know. And this is what happened. First summer, I got broken in. There's a reason I'm telling you that. The reason is because, you see, when I lived in my hometown, I was always expected, like, really thought to be ready to step down to be with somebody. And that stopped when I started fighting. Then it came to Atlanta, and that first summer that I was there and I got broken in, I did step down. And it was largely because I was I just wanted to make sure my equipment worked. I was trying to understand what made the sisters in my hometown think what they thought. And then when I got to Atlanta and I was starting class at Morehouse, eventually a lot of sisters at Spelman seemed to think so. Seemed to think like the ones in my hometown. I didn't get it, but they seemed to think so. They were just nicer and more polite about it. And I won't front. There were things that I did not know about what you can and can't tell ladies, but as far as just being outright weirdo, no. So I know I couldn't chalk it up to that, like what a lot of people like to do, where you just weird. No, I was far less weird than the chicks were, and I call them chicks for a reason. I mean, they were on that feminism, they were on that misandry. It was actually a class they were taking. But the thing is, I stepped down just to make sure all the parts worked fine like normal. I stepped down. And that was a lesson for me. Of course, she wanted a commitment, some kind of commitment. I wasn't for it. I could see the difference between our situations, and I knew that we weren't compatible, and it wasn't because she was a bad person per se, but I mean, little hood. But the thing is that the differences between us, well, the differences between us were differences she would not have tolerated had they been the reverse. And I wasn't, rightly so, I was not interested in, as you can understand, I wasn't going to floor two? Yeah. Okay. As you can understand, I wasn't interested in trying to bridge that gap. It would not have made much sense. And what's happening now is that a lot of you are going to where you're going. Sosua, Medellin, and I'm listing cities instead of the countries for a reason. You're going to Sosua and Medellin, even Pattaya, and you're going to these places because you're likely to know someone that's already there or someone that has already been there. These are beaten paths for us brothers coming out the West. The issue is this. You are letting yourselves become typecast. And when I say typecast, it's a term from, those of you my age know what that is, but for the ones younger, it was a term that they used for actors. Jaleel White was typecast. Jaleel White is never going to be able to get another role except for that of Urkel. I think he played a villain at some point in one movie, but it was not believable and it wasn't his fault. He was typecast. Sean Connery was typecast as James Bond for years. So in the end, it just came down to that. It came down to, because you played a role so well, you could not play any other role. I think to a certain extent it happens all the time, to a certain extent, but it was just really bad for these guys. By the time people use that term, it is pretty bad. I don't want you being typecast as money bags. I don't want this happening to you. And in Pattaya, it sounds like that's what's going on. Now, I'm going to be honest and tell you that I've listened to people that are detractors or that disagree, but I'm mainly listening for the purpose of understanding why they say what they say, whether I agree or not. I don't agree that you need to learn more game. I don't think that most of you sound awkward or strange to these women that are talking. I don't think that's what's going on. What I believe is the case is that most of you are confused by these broads in the West. And you don't know what to expect. And so they're looking for reasons anyway to say that you're just odd or strange or weird and creepy. And they intentionally confuse you because they're looking to eliminate you. And so you played that for long enough, not realizing that it was that bad. And Austin Holloman was right to use that particular catchphrase. He should have kept doing that. It's that bad. Because it is. Mixed messages are bad enough. Women do not tolerate mixed messages from men. They don't do it. Women don't tolerate that for a minute, and they don't even tolerate messages that are not mixed. They'll just say you're giving a mixed message because you had nuance. Meanwhile, there are all kinds of nuances and details and things about them, and you're considered stupid for not knowing. It's terrible. So when a man says he's doing okay in the West, then my question is, meaning with women, and my question is, well, what the hell is wrong with him, or what the hell do the women think is wrong with him for him to be doing okay in the West? I mean, call it what it is. In order to be doing okay in the West, either there's something seriously wrong with you, or there's something that the sisters are looking for to be wrong, and they think you've convinced them that it's wrong. That's what it takes. Otherwise, you'll fail with them. We know that. But this notion of you going to Pattaya and a lot of you paying for play is you stepping down. And I want you guys to understand, as a man that stepped down, as a man who was pretty much unanimously agreed upon by sisters to have to step down. And not because of something I did wrong. Took me years to figure that out. As one of those guys, I know you don't want to do that. I came up Huxtable. I'm supposed to be able to match with someone that came up similarly. I know, hypergamy, right? I'm still supposed to be able to do that. But in my generation, we can't. Now, in my specific age group, it wasn't quite as impossible. Not quite so bad. But when you start looking at the age groups coming up, the ones of you that are now in your 30s and 20s, you don't have that option. You see, what you're facing now, I face, but what you're facing, most of you are facing this. I had to face this alone. We didn't have the vocabulary to discuss this when I needed it. I couldn't even fully frame the question. I couldn't even provide the proper context for the questions to ask someone because the vocabulary was not there. You guys now have the vocabulary. So what I want you to understand is why it is that you will go and you will land in a place like Pattaya and you'll chat these ladies up. And then when they name a price, they feel comfortable doing so. That's because they've named prices for brothers. And so many of you have gone ahead and said, all right, it's not that most of you are going there and wifing them up or claiming them. It's not that. But you're still going the route of male inchastity because, not because you're dudes, not just because you're dudes, but you're also going that route for another reason. You're going that route because we come from a community where even when the men have outgrown trying to shame dudes for inexperience and virginity, the women don't. We still come from that. And a lot of us are still coming from that mindset and are not willing to accept the fact that, or not willing to fully understand that in actuality, in order for you to be inexperienced, have a low body count, only means that you have some kind of good sense or that you're normal. That's what that means. You're a normal guy. But a lot of us keep forgetting what the hell this information that we now have actually means when the rubber hits the road. It means you are normal, so you don't need a high body count to validate your particular perspective. You don't even need a lot of years. Are you getting mixed messages from women? That's all the hell that matters. At that point, that's reason enough for you to abandon the West. But don't abandon the West and go land in, Sassu is too late. Pattaya is too late, probably. Don't land in these places and make the same mistakes. If you were checking for chicks that were high post or they looked high post and high maintenance in the States, because there were so many that looked this way. There are plenty of them that looked that way, stateside. And if that's what you were checking for, and it was always the same with them, a bunch of attitude, mixed messages, friend zone, anything but success, anything but matching up. But by the same token, with all their difficulty with you, none of them were virgins. If that's what you were facing stateside, then what that means is that you go abroad, but you must also look for something that is different, because the fact that different is there and available and better is the reason you would leave. You don't go abroad and start looking for the women that got body enhancements. She done sat up there and got a body enhancement. She done paid a doctor to put something extra in her trunk. Why the hell do you think she did it? You're going to go look for someone that's got tattoos on them in the same places as the chicks in the Matrix had tattoos, and showing as much of themselves off in public as the ones in the Matrix. Why would you do that? They're looking for the same kind of attention. They're just not as mean. And many of you don't understand it. Because they're not as mean does not mean that they're actually good for you. So you had to step down in the Matrix like I did. Most of you had to do it. And that's one of the things you got to realize. If most of you got to step down and you know enough to justify leaving the States, that's cool, that's great. But that also means you know enough to justify not accepting any sort of price for a night where you land. Paying for play is not going to help. It ain't going to work. It's going to get you a bad reputation, especially if you start off at the early stages of this so-called movement, if you will. Literally a movement, brothers moving. You start off doing this early on when the ranks are still saturated with passport pookies, not the same as passport bros. You're going to make a name for black men as tricks. And I don't want that for you. And you don't want that for yourself when you really sit down and think about it. You see, black men, you don't realize your value because no one told us that we had it. We're just now beginning to hear that we have it, but we need to also digest what the wuck that means. What the wuck does this new information that we have mean when the rubber hits the road? You've been lied to, you've been hoodwinked, you've been bamboozled, you've been run amok, You've been led astray, tricked, deceived. You've been had. Yeah. You didn't land on a passport. The passport landed on you. You didn't land on the mixed messages. The mixed messages landed on you. You didn't land in the friend zone. The friend zone landed on you. And that is really what you must understand. You didn't land in the position of stepdad. It landed on you. Why? Why did the friend zone in the position of stepdad and the position of cuck land on you? Because they were thrown at you. You didn't seek them out. As soon as you showed up, here you go. You can be my friend. Here you go. We a package deal. I got to be careful who I bring around my kids, but why don't you buy them some food? You'll meet them later. And that's all you were allowed. But what does it mean when the rubber hits the road? What does the information that we now know mean? What we know cognitively, we must understand. What is it that we must understand? That you have a value you were told you don't have. You were told that you ain't worth much. You were told to just accept that you were going to have to always pursue, and not even for any real return on that effort and investment, but you were supposed to pursue just for the chance to keep on pursuing. That you were supposed to initiate every stage. You were supposed to initiate the dates. You were supposed to ask for marriage. You're supposed to initiate every sexual encounter. What are the only things that they actually initiate? I want a baby and I want a divorce. Oh, and I want to go shopping. In the meantime, they literally initiate nothing that is convenient for you. And as AC said, they know what the hell you deserve as men. They just don't think you deserve it as black men. AC was right about that. And I'm telling you guys, man, look, you don't understand what the new information that we have means, or you forget it all. You will land somewhere, you'll chat up a chick, she'll name a price, which means you shouldn't even been spending all that time chatting her up in the first mother cuss word place. And you'll think, well, okay, I got enough sense to not claim her. She not a wife. She ain't wifey material. So we're not dating. It's not going to be like that. But I'm going to go ahead and take up on this price because I got some catching up to do. No, bruh. That's not catching up. Now, some of y'all are going to do it anyway. If you do it, I had nothing to do with that. Don't go getting up on Judgment Day coming out them graves talking about, well, black mind didn't seem to mind that I was paying for play. No. I'm saying you don't want to do that. But what I'm also telling you, gentlemen, is that if you sit up here and you let them easily get that money out of you, even though they might be very nice in the process, they might know how to be polite about it and that sort of thing. Don't think that you're getting some better deal. You're getting a deal that's just not as bad as the one in the West, because you already know in the West, they're always trying to get the pay without the play. And they're doing it in Colombia too. That's why they try to drug you and rob you. They're not trying to play. They're just trying to get paid. Now they're doing that to anybody. They're not just doing that to bros. I know that. I let other people worry about themselves. Talking to you, black men, with the value that women can see, that they want, but are not willing to fully let you know that they appreciate, because you know what? It gets them more money out of you. Don't step low like that. Don't step down that far. Hypergamy is real, but this exaggerated hypergamy that you're facing is exaggerated. Don't validate that. Don't accept that. If you came up Huxtable and you actually acted the part, you act like somebody that grew up Huxtable, then that's what you deserve. You got to bring that. You need to get that back. And I understand, being with a single mom over there is vastly different than being with a single mom in the West where a lot of you are. I get that because they don't come with all the entitlement. And it's true. They generally don't. I mean, Colombia's got a higher single mother rate than other places. That's true. So I do understand that there is a vast difference. I get it. But it's more of a give and take. I mean, I was a single dad, then I married a single mom, but the one I married was a widow. She wasn't a divorcee. She didn't run the husband off. He went to work, had an accident, died later that evening, and in a whole lot of pain too. So I understand that. I get that. I don't need to necessarily sit up and say, well, man, she was a bad deal, and I don't want that overused crotch and take them crumb snatchers away. I didn't need to be that way. I was in an equal footing, though, an equal position. But a lot of you guys sit up here and accepting what's not an equal position for you. You shouldn't do it, but a lot of you are. An unequal position, you're stepping down. As you would say in the church, you're unequally yoked, and I'm telling you to stop that. Because you see, in all honesty, they may want to go ahead and get paid to play, but realize this too, though. They want to play. They see you, they may want to nest and to play. And one of the things that you bring, you, the black man, with some sense about yourself, one of the things you bring is an understanding of the balance in between the duties of marriage and the romance that needs to stay in a marriage. You understand that. People have said this about you in multiple cultures. Non-black Arab women here in Saudi say black men are more romantic. They're talking about black Western men. They're talking about black Saudi men. So they think it's something in the genes. That we're more romantic. And romance belongs in a marriage. But you landing, chatting them up, and then they name a price when you ask them out. And some of you are going ahead and taking them up on it. And then you wind up passing the same ones back and forth in between yourselves. Now, a lot of the people doing this are passport pookies, not passport bros. But since there's not yet a clear delineation in between the two, I'm worried about the fuzziness of that line, the bleeding across the line of these things. And that's why I'm addressing this to you knuckleheads. Best thing to do is just go ahead and make it known. We don't pay to play. We play for pay before we pay to play. And I'm not telling you to sell the ding-a-ling. What I'm telling you to do is to insist that you would do that before you would sit up and pay. You might be thinking, man, it don't even sound realistic. That means you underestimate black men more than I do. I can say this about y'all. I can't do that. And I'm not even bitter about it. I can't. I mean, I could collect after a woman has been with me, I could probably collect if she has it. But I can't start off like that. It's not something I can do. And don't think I should. You can. You are seen as less neurotic, less creepy, less weird. You are seen as calmer, smoother in general. I'm not talking about just the stereotypical images of cool that plays a part of it too, but I'm talking also about your overall neural wiring. That's how you're seen. Like, man, this ain't nothing. Things that bother other people, man, this ain't nothing. Maybe unpleasant, but we're not going to sit up here and worry about it. We'll do our best. The things that make other people scared and panic, you tend to have an attitude more similar to the men of the men that raised them. We'll do our best, and we're not going to panic about this. We ain't tripping. That's what it is. And so, don't let anybody come to you. I would say right now, because you don't deserve a bad reputation yet. I would say, look, when they come to you with a price, you just respectfully say, well, it's nothing against you. I know you got to get that money. But if you want to earn money, you should be offering to do something like paint my house. I'll pay you to cook. Something like that. You can tell them, listen, I'll pay for something else, and it's going to have to be worth that same price. Well, I'll pay you less for some work that's worth less, but pay to play is not something we do. Why not? We black men. How you going to respect us if we pay? You got to do it. Because if you don't, you're stepping down. And trust me, I know. You don't want to step down. Not that far. I'm not talking about what's natural in terms of hypergamy, but further than that, no, you don't want to step down. You regret it. I've done it. And there are times when I don't sleep well because I'm laying down to sleep and I've done my work for the day. And then I can just remember stepping down. And most of the time it was out of ignorance. I didn't realize how far I was stepping down. I knew about hypergamy, but I didn't know about that particular word for it. But, I look back and I think I stepped down further than what I should have. And that was largely because of what I did not know, what I could not ask, what others could not tell me, the vocabulary we didn't have at that time. By the time I started to find out about some of these words and the vocabulary and red pill this and black manosphere that, by that time, first time I found out about just the manosphere in general, I was already married to my first wife. By the time I found out about the black manosphere, that ain't all that white BS that comes with it, with the red pill awareness. By the time I found out about this space, I was already divorced from my second ex. Think what I could have avoided. You young guys coming up now, and I mean even in your 30s, you know about this, you know the vocabulary. So not only do you have the concept, you have the words, the vocabulary to explain it in your first languages. You know this stuff, you know the concept, you know what to avoid. But you just got to understand what the hell it means. It all comes from growing up in a hyenocracy that reinforces the notion at all ages. Long after we males have outgrown this stupidity, the females come along twice that age and they reinforce this notion that you don't have a high enough body count and enough experience because something is wrong with you, never telling you that they have actually come to an agreement collectively to shut most men out of such capacity. And you just happen to be in that majority. And that leads to the psychosis that causes many of you to come to see what the Westernisha is like and then go travel and land somewhere else. And then as long as the lady over there of the night does not act as bad as the Westernisha, you fall for it. You might be stepping down less far, but you're still stepping down too far. Cut that out. And the way to cut that out is to understand how you've been lied to, what it means to know how you've been lied to, and about the value you have, but you were told you don't. I hope that what I've said helps you out. Thank you all for listening again. And as always, black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you all again for flying with us here at Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.